Hey everyone, my name is Matt. Welcome to my backyard. That thing back there is my homemade bandsaw mill, and this is a big chunk of silver maple. If you missed my last slabbing video, this is kind of like a continuation of that one, sort of a part two. In the last one, we cut the other section of this tree, which is a log that's cut up behind me. That was a little bit of an adventure. There was some really awesome lumber and figure and color in that wood, but there was also a couple of big chunks of steel in there that we cut through, as well as some copper and brass throughout the way. So kind of a fun one. Definitely was a interesting adventure. I'll leave a link to that if you haven't seen that one already. So my buddy Brandon brought this log as well as the other one from a removal job. He dropped this off with me last November. It is now August, so it's been sitting around for a while as I've been kind of working on other things away from the mill. Now that I'm back into milling, it's time to start cutting these things and getting them kind of out of log form and into board and slab form. So this section is about 3 feet in diameter and about 6 feet long. So a decently sized small piece of a log, and I think we're going to see some pretty interesting things in this guy. We're going to see some more spalting just like on the last one, and maybe even more spalting than last time, so that should be pretty cool. So getting this thing up here wasn't super eventful. One of the easier ones because it is cylindrical. This is not a crotch section, so it rolls pretty easily and it just kind of moves around a lot more easily than something with some crotch limbs sticking out of it, which is super nice. I spent some time out here with my son one evening. We got this thing onto the trailer, and then the following day I offloaded it off the trailer and onto the mill, and again went pretty uneventfully. And because it's cylindrical, I can roll it really easily, or relatively easily because of its size, with a long cant hook. So as always, before we get cutting, we're going to take a quick walk around the log, talk about some of the aspects that could be in there, some of the factors of why I have it positioned the way that I do, and all of that. So let's take a closer look. So the first thing I want to point out is the lack of bark. In the time this thing has been sitting out here for about 8 months, that bark has fallen off, and because of where this thing was laying in my driveway, it was exposed to full sun for those full 8 months. So not exactly the best storage conditions for a log. So on the other log, if you saw that video, a lot of the bark was still attached and it was still kind of hanging there. I left it on there to help protect it, and that log was also laying in the shade. This one, the bark really just dried out and fell off, and it lost that protection. One of the things that I like to do with my logs is keep the bark on as long as possible, because the bark helps to keep the moisture in the log, keeping it from doing this. You can see I'm starting to get some splits forming along the longitudinal axis of the grain. So you can see it's starting to form all of these cracks all the way up, and you can see how the tree grew in kind of a spiral pattern because the cracks follow the grain and the grain's kind of curving up that way. Now, luckily enough, I'm cutting this kind of soon enough that these cracks aren't going to be a huge deal. There will be some cracks because we're doing live edge, so there will be some cracks that kind of go into the face of the board. But if you were squaring this up into edged lumber, a lot of this will be removed as you do your edging, so it's not as big of a deal. But the longer you leave it out, the deeper those cracks get, and then the deeper they are into the log, the more material you have to remove just to get rid of them. So some interesting features as we're walking around this side of the log. You can see these lumps here. There's some quilt marks, so there should be some figure in that area. And swing around to the end, this is where I want to spend the majority of the time talking about this thing. So right here is a bit of a rot pocket. Coming up this way in the tree was that limb and the other log that had been cut off and started to rot. So there's some rot infiltration coming down through the log from the limb that was kind of over in this area here. So I've oriented this because I know this is going to be pretty soft and not super great. I've oriented it so I'll be cutting through it, and eventually I'll be through all the soft stuff and just be getting solid boards. Originally, before I started kind of really showing me how mushy it was, I was thinking of cutting it in this direction, so you would have some clean boards with a stripe of spalting on the other end. But if I were to do that, you probably end up with some kind of mushy boards on half of the thing anyway. So with it like this, we can see if it's going to be too mushy to even use or what. The other thing going on here is this blue stain, which is a result of that steel that we found last time. So that steel spike was somewhere up here, and the staining propagates down through the log. So in theory, this is just staining from what used to be up here, and not that there's more stuff in there. but we'll see when we get in there. Nothing crazy going on over here. This is probably gonna be mostly a boring straight grain log, no limbs, no nothing. It's probably gonna be not that exciting. I'm more into the crotch stuff, but here is something that could be something interesting. This kind of lump here, that could be the start of a quilt lump or a burl or something could be forming there. So that could be something, but nothing super noteworthy on this side of the log. And then coming down to this side, you can see we have a little bit of rot down in here. So it's very possible that the rot has propagated from the other end all the way down the length of this log, and it's now over here. So we could have rot that runs all the way through the log. So again, you won't know until you open it up. And we're back around to this side again. So again, nothing super notable here. You know, a few quilt lumps here and there, but nothing super crazy. But yeah, we'll see what it looks like when we open it up. So for the first cut, I'm gonna try and place that somewhere in here. I think that should give me a decent amount of width to start with, about 16 inches all the way down, hopefully. And that should make a nice cap for air drying this thing outside. So that would be at about 35 inches off the bed. On my foot again. Ugh. Ooh, this is nice. That's got a really nice palette of colors going on. Like really dark grays, almost blacks coming through here. And you can see that grain direction is coming up in a spiral. So that spiral grain produces at least some interesting figure, because all of these figure lines or color lines are not parallel to the length. They're at some kind of skew angle, which is pretty sweet. Now I can go ahead and just keep cutting until I max out the throat on the saw. So I should be able to make, I think it's 6 cuts. These are gonna be a 10 quarter, so I think I can get 6 at 10 quarter, 2.5 inches thick before I run out of room in the throat. I think maybe I'll make this first cut like 8. It's not very wide. Yeah, we'll do 8, yeah. All right, this blade is getting a little dull. I can feel it starting to walk a little bit, even though it's crazy how like sharp it still feels, but it is kind of starting to walk a little bit, and it's not cutting as fast as it should be. But this is one of my old blades from like a year ago, so I'm not too worried about that. So I'll just swap out some blades here, then we'll get back to cutting. Okay, this one is on. So I guess that first one out of the box, a little too short. Probably by like a 1/2 inch. Couldn't get it on. So I guess I'll save that blade for the day where I decide I feel like modifying my idle side so that it moves closer to the drive wheel, I guess. Even this one is kind of tight. I think I might have them increase the length of the blades by like 1 gullet, just to give myself a little more leeway in the length, because that was a little tight to get on. The blades must be getting shorter, or my saw is getting wider. I can't tell which. Because those size blades used to fit just fine. So just like the last one, I need to rearrange some stuff back here anyway, so I don't have a permanent spot for these yet. So I'm gonna stack this log next to the other one right there on that pallet. We already took a look at this guy, so let me get this out of the way and we'll take a look at the next cut. That's some nice color. So I think these are probably going to be like boring, at least for me. You know, a straight grain, but the interesting part of these slabs is going to be the overall color. Since there's no knots or anything in the log, there's not going to be any interesting figure or anything going on probably. But the color is where it's at. Oh yeah. Yeah, they're starting to get good. That's some really cool color. And we're starting to get into the spalt. But I think this is like right before it starts to get a little bit on the rotted side. So this area down here on the subsequent slabs will probably be pretty soft and rotted, but look at all the nice color in here. I really love this kind of weird spalting stuff going on the outside there, that black. It's like, it's spalting, but it's all over the place. Like this is what you would see normally with spalting, some really defined lines. You got some blurred lines going on over there. All right, this is getting even better. Now we're into a little more of the spalt down here. Still, I mean, it's starting to get maybe a little bit on the punky side, but still not terrible. You got some really nice deep spalt lines through there. And just to give us an idea of where we're at here as far as size goes, this is 29 inches from the bark to the bark. And we're at 5.5 feet long. Nice. Oh, look, a little bit of figure. So there's that nice spalting down there. And there's a little bit of figure right up in here, which is pretty cool. And you got some spalting continuing through the whole slab too. Really nice one. So I have to say, I'm actually kind of getting excited about this. I wasn't super excited about this one because, you know, I'm more of a crotch and crazy grain kind of man. Not so much straight grain, but having all of this color and spalt in here is just, it's changing my mind. It's incredible. All right, this one's a little wider. Looks like we have some ants. Yep, a few ants. Oh, this next one's looking good. Real good. I hope no one's afraid of ants. Oh, I gotta get in a different position. This is shooting them onto my head. So I know I've shown this a little bit in the past, but this is how I tend to deal with ants, which is pretty much the majority of the bugs that I'll run into that's inside the wood. Blowing them out with compressed air works really well to at least get them out of there, and then after that I'll come back in and just spray some household ant killer down in there. Spraying it out first helps remove any junk or gunk that's down in there that could otherwise mold later on as it's drying, and just kind of gets the ants out of the hole to begin with, and then the ant killer will just kill anything that might be left in there. So the ant killer is going to be a little more necessary in this case, since this nest is so big, and you can see every single time I come back and hit this thing with some more compressed air, more ants pop out. So this nest is pretty big down inside of there. All right, so we'll take a look at this one here so I don't wash away all of that insecticide. Oh, that's nice. That's really nice. What do you think of that? Spalting is really nice. And down through here isn't really all that soft. It's still pretty solid, which is good. And then coming up through here, got a little bit of figure pockets, which are really nice. And then you've got some nice figure around where that ant nest is. Oops. Let's see what we got here. That's beautiful. This figure pocket thing, that's looking quite nice. Got some nice figure around this knot that was in here. So now we're getting into the older parts of the tree where the early limbs used to live before they fell off or removed as the tree got taller. Look at that cool figure through there. It's really nice color, really nice figure. These are getting really nice. The spalting over here is a pretty cool detail as well, and that runs the full length. It's a really cool color palette here. You got all this nice yellow through here, which fades out into a almost pinkish orange and then to kind of a gray. That's a really cool color gradient. So this one had its corner fall off too. Just what happens when you let this stuff sit out in the sun. But hey, we're woodworkers. We can put that back. No problem. Look at that. Isn't that nice? A little more yellows, pinks, grays. Really nice figure around all those knots. And some spalting up the side here. Really nice. Really, really nice. Of course, there's a nice crack, so that needs to be put back on there, but otherwise you'd never know. It's a feature now, right? So I think at this point, I'm just gonna roll this thing over. It's lost so much weight now that it's not all that stable and does kind of rock around a little bit. And also that blue staining will be within the cut, or the next cut off of here. So if I roll it over and start cutting from what is now the bottom down, the steel embedment area that could possibly be there will be the last cut. So if I hit steel on that last cut, at least it's the last cut. And because I'm too lazy to unspool the cable of my winch, I'm just gonna use my hoist. If you grunt, it makes you stronger. It's nice when things go smoothly and you can just keep cutting and there's no issues at all. That's nice. Didn't feel anything in the log as I was cutting, so in theory there shouldn't be any steel or anything in here, so should be lucky. Now in order to keep these kind of in order, I need to take the bottom slab over the stack first, so I got to kind of rearrange things on the bed here, get the top ones out of the way to start with. This might be the best one. That's just incredible. Wait till you see this. Yeah, that's the best one. That is really nice. A lot of great color in this one. And even some figure around this knot. It also looks like there's some kind of figure coming up from the center and a little bit over there. The colors on this one are just really nice. Really nice pink in the middle, bands of yellows and blues and grays. I think this one's gonna have a similar look to the last one, maybe just a little bit more on the colorful side without any of the knots and stuff. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. We got some little tiny burl pocket thing going on over here, which is really nice. This is that little burl area that I was gasping about. This is probably a quilt, one of those quilt lumps in there. So we got that kind of circular pattern in the log or in the grain. Just, you know, pretty clean. Some interesting things going on, like this little bit of figure there. But I really still like this kind of colorful, rich center, kind of fading out into the grays and stuff towards the outside. And you got some really nice spalting along the band on both sides. Boom! Oh, that's cool. Kind of the same thing. More beauty. Very, very nice. Splish splash, here we go. So kind of similar to the last few slabs, just a little bit narrower. Same kind of patterns with the spalting bands along the outside and some nice color and cathedral grain in the middle. A few places in here with a little bit of figure things going on. Got some blue stain here as we're getting towards the outside of the log. The two bands of spalting are going to start converging as we get higher and higher in the log. Pretty cool. We just have a little bit of the clean kind of stuff in the middle still, and now that we're getting towards what's the outside of the log, we're getting a lot more of the stuff that was starting to kind of decompose with all that spalting. So it's a really cool look. And there's a little bit of figure up in here too, but I think just this cathedral coming up into the stained area through here, that's just absolutely gorgeous. Okay, one more to grab. Okay, this one's gonna be all spalting and stain, because now we're towards the very outside of the log. Hooah! That was cool. Oh, that's really cool. Oh yeah. Look at that diagonal grain. Isn't that so cool? Look at that. Isn't that just the coolest? All those grays, blacks, and blues in there. Man, it's just so nice. It's so nice and so unique. Even up here we have some yellow. Isn't that nice? Man, that diagonal grain, that is the coolest. Look at that. Isn't that so cool? Look at that. That's just the coolest. Incredible. So there we go. Another boule. So there we go. The second log is all cut up. So this whole tree is now converted into slabs, and when I have some free time here, I'll get this thing stacked for real. It should be pretty sweet to see this log stacked on top of that log and it all looking all nice and pretty out here in the yard. So that's gonna do it for this one. Thank you as always for watching. I greatly appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments on this log, that log, the sawmill, or anything back in the shop, please feel free to leave me a comment, as I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. And until next time, happy woodworking.